You're listening to the Slaying Self-Doubt podcast with Coach Felicia, where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to give birth to their God-given purpose. Join me and sometimes some of my friends on our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I'm Felicia Wallace, and together we will find our fears and slay them. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you been struggling lately? Maybe you're having trouble sleeping, difficulty with the relationship, or just suffering from self-doubt. Now, y'all know there's no shame in my game, and life has been lifing lately. Trying to manage the priorities of being a wife, mom, friend, and full-time entrepreneur, it can get overwhelming. If this sounds like you, then BetterHelp wants to help you today. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Talk to a therapist in a private online environment at your convenience. There are over 20,000 therapists in BetterHelp's network, which gives you access to help that may not be available in your area. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to assess your specific needs, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. How cool is that? Then you schedule secure video and phone sessions. Plus, you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. You can also request a new therapist anytime at no additional charge. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced therapist from BetterHelp. There's a special offer to the Slaying Self-Doubt podcast listeners. You get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/slaying. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/slaying, SLAYING. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Slaying Self-Doubt podcast. I am here with Christian Mills from Purpose Push Her Co. Hey, Christian, how are you?
Hi, Felicia. I am doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. So y'all already know I do a little intro to let people know how we got connected. And Christian is one of the people who responded to my threads some months ago about getting on the podcast and sharing your story. So I appreciate your willingness to come on here, because clearly I was a stranger asking strangers whether or not they just wanted to come talk to me for an hour. And you were one of the people that said, sure, why not? So I
Yes.
definitely appreciate you being here. And before we got on, you mentioned that you hadn't been on a podcast in a really long time, and that this was an opportunity for you to be able to just do what the Lord has been calling you to do. So I am grateful that you said yes. I'm grateful for your yes before we even get started. And I'm grateful for my yes, okay? Because I was being obedient too when I posted that, and not knowing what was going to come of it. And so I have been blessed to meet a bunch of amazing women just off of that one post. So yeah, I'm grateful. So before we get started, as we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Sure. So again, thank you for having me, and thank you for taking a chance on us girls who responded to the thread.
Hey, listen, and y'all was on it, okay? Because in like 48 hours, I didn't have no more spots, and people was like, "Is it too late?" I was like, "Yeah, child, I'm overwhelmed. Like these people filled this thing up, okay?"
See you next season.
Right.
But I'm thankful to God, thankful to you for just opening up your platform. But to be honest, I just went through a rough season the end of last year, and I was kind of tussling with like, okay, God, these different things are falling apart. And in a way, I felt like, God, you're letting them. So how do I show up and still choose purpose? How do I still choose to call the things that you want me to do the things that you want me to do, like building Purpose Push Her Co. And I tussled a little bit. I was kind of like, until we get through the other side of this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk in this. And God was like, no, you're going to walk on this. And, as we walk through this, we're going to get to the other side of this. And so I just started with baby steps. I built the newsletter. I started building the community, and we're just growing. But it was a tussle. So I got started with tussling with the Lord in a tough season, but he showed me that there was purpose in it, and it was preparing me for purpose in this season.
Well, first of all, we are not the girls like to tussle, okay? So we
Hmm.
know that's what
Hmm.
slaying self-doubt is about. It's about tussling, all right?
We be tussling with the
we
Lord.
be, we be tussling with the Lord. And so basically even your story, what you just shared, is literally slaying your self-doubt, right? Like we
Hmm.
want to get to the end of the story before we share what's going on.
Yep.
And we don't recognize that people need to hear the pain. People need to hear the
Yeah.
problems. People need to
Yeah.
hear the process. You see how I use all them P's with your purpose
Come on,
pusher?
alliteration.
Let's go. And so that's commendable in itself because I
Thank
know that
you.
my story started with like, what am I supposed to tell these people about? Why would I tell them that I'm struggling with this? Why
Come
would I
on.
tell them that I'm having it? People gonna be looking at me like I'm crazy, like, girl, why you telling all these people your problem? And little do we know that that's all people do anyway, right? Like, but
Truly.
there's purpose in our us telling our testimony and in our story, whereas
Absolutely.
people just be talking on these social media platforms
Literally.
just to be talking, right? So
Hmm.
I so thank you for, just again being obedient in your yes and actually saying, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. We gonna do this together, even with the Tesla, because I tell people often sometimes the way my relationship is with the Lord is that sometimes he
Yeah.
is a Bama. And so I know that in the Tesla, and I'll be like, okay, so you doing the most. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and I'm gonna be over here. And when you get yourself
Okay.
together, you
I
come
need
back
three
and
to
talk to
five
me.
business days. Okay. I need to be over here a little bit. I hear what you're saying, but I gotta process and make peace with it. And I'm gonna see you next week.
Exactly. I need you to go mind somebody else's business. Leave me alone
Please.
for a minute, right?
Please.
But that is where the growth happens in us, right? Because
Yeah.
we are having to share our story. The healing happens within us, and we're
Yeah.
able to see, dang, like he knew what he was talking about, right?
He did.
he knew. So as you started this journey, how does self-doubt show up in your journey?
I think self doubt show up in my journey because so one, I'll say for context, like I'm a pastor's kid. I'm the oldest of five. Like I was always the kid, love my parents' church. So this wasn't a them thing, but I was always the kid that was like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
When I grow up, I'm not doing ministry. I love the Lord, but it seems like a huge responsibility and people
baby.
be people in. And I just, I love the Lord, but I'm going to love him and I'm not going to be in ministry.
Right.
And God was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
um, yeah, okay. And so just like as I've gone through the wanting to say yes and wanting to say no, and wanting to say yes and wanting to say no, I think my doubt with building Purpose Pusher Co was I think there's been so many women who've been hurt by women. There are
Mm,
so many Christian women that have been hurt by women and also the church where I was
yeah.
kind of like, God, you're calling me to build this, what I really believe is going to be a national, international women's ministry movement, just
Hmm.
empowering women to walk in purpose, but I also feel like so many women have been hurt by community.
Yeah.
So I was doubting, like, are women going to trust me? Do women even still believe that women can build genuine community? Are people going to just think that I'm this Jesus girl? Like, are they going
Right.
to believe that
Mm,
my walk with you is authentic? And it's like, I know that it is, but I also see people pimping Jesus on the internet. So it's like,
baby.
it's just a lot where I was like, Jesus, I don't know. I just
Hmm.
really was doubting, like, does the world need this? Do women need this? And it's so interesting because it's like now that I've been moving in it, it's something that I would have needed. Just more
Yes.
women to share their journey of purpose. So you're not alone as you're producing the things that God is calling you to do and being the woman that God is calling you to be. But I'm like, I was really doubting. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know if we need another women's community. There's so many of them.
Yeah. So again, in this moment, I'm like, we're like kindred spirits because this is literally sounds so
Right here.
familiar, right? It just sounds so familiar. Um, I that resonates with me because those are the things like who wants to hear this? Who wants to hear me talk about these things? And like you said, like one of the things that I have recognized over the years is that if people are having these conversations in their small communities, right, with your
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends or whatever have you, sometimes the fear is that if I can't do it in this small circle, how am I supposed
Yeah,
to do it in it? Who gonna listen to me, right? Like you said,
exactly.
and then the Lord's name is like I like the way you said people be pimping Jesus. Okay.
Listen.
But the people tend to like using God, Jesus, Lord, your faith in general is like a
Yeah.
hard stamp, right? We
Yeah.
know that specifically in the Black community, like you put God on it, can't nobody argue with it, right? Because you are
Exactly.
saying, oh, that's don't
This
nothing
came
go
from
past
God.
that, right? This came from God, right? And so because of that, I understand the apprehension of being using his name, right? And using his name as a part of your platform. And at
Yeah.
the same time, understanding that everybody's walk is different, right? And
Yes.
so knowing that what you have to say doesn't compete with what I have to say, right? Even if it's
Exactly.
similar, right? It's an alignment, but it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same thing because who you're called to serve is different from who I'm called to serve. But if we
Yeah.
connect like we're doing right now, then we're helping
Mm-hmm.
the people who are pushing purpose and also slaying
Exactly.
self-doubt. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But we
Mm-hmm.
tend to think it's no room.
Exactly.
There's no room for me and you, right? Where's the
Right.
space? And I've had clients before. I'm like, you see pictures sometimes they used to do it often on social media where you're like, walk down the water aisle or walk down the bread aisle. Like,
Literally.
first of
Yes.
all, water is free. Okay.
And the one that gets me for real is the bread. When they do the bread demonstrations, I'm like, honey, I first of all, I eat too much bread as it is. I've been trying to portion that down. But I'm like, if you walk through the bread aisle, there are like probably 25 brands of bread. And there's
Yes.
somebody buying every single
Every
brand.
single one. And that's the I always use the water analogy because I'm like, water is free, but we are paying for it, right? Like
Hello.
literally you can just turn on a spigot and get it, but it come in glass, it come in plastic, it come in
Come
boxes, it
on.
come in jugs, it come in packs, it come in all these different sizes, all this stuff. Guess what?
Yeah.
You still need it. Right, it's just
Still need it.
whichever your preference is. You get one with the alkaline, you get one without the
Come
alkaline.
on.
Some
You
is
get a
just
bougie bottle or you get a basic
bougie
bottle,
bottle,
whatever.
okay,
Come
because I
on.
used to be a boss girl until the price went up.
Right.
And then it's like, no, I'm going back to Kirkland's. That's what
Hello,
we
let me
gonna
get
do.
my 24 case of Gear Park because
Right.
we ain't gonna just keep buying Fiji water right now.
Exactly. So I think that there's space for all of us, but I appreciate you saying that that was the thing that you were struggling with because there are women who are going to listen to this episode and be like, you all already exist. But God put
Yeah,
something on me to share and I'm not going to share it because I see so many other people talking about purpose, talking
yeah,
about fear, talking about doubt, talking. But sometimes for me, I feel like those are confirmations, right?
yes,
That this needs to be talked about because the
absolutely.
way everybody on here know that Sarah Jakes is my girl, okay? And so
Mine too, girl.
I be like, and I'm like, we know she gonna talk about fear, she gonna talk about insecurity, she gonna talk about purpose, but the way
Absolutely.
she delivers it and the way she does it is different from what I'm gonna do and what you're gonna do. So this room,
Exactly.
again, like I said before, it's room for us all. So when you have
Yes.
those moments, or when you had those moments, what kind of practical tips or practical steps did you take that you can help the listeners to be able to like push past it right now? I don't want to say push past it, but
Yeah.
take it one day at a time. And no, we going you because you pusher.
Yeah.
How you pushing through?
We push your purpose and we're not trying to walk in purpose, right? It's
Right,
giving a little get it together, girl.
right.
So one good question too. One of the things that I think helped my journey, one, I'm gonna write it down and pray about it no matter how I feel about it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always gonna write it down and pray about it. And give God a chance to speak, to move, to confirm. And for me, it was like, girl, you're supposed to be doing this thing. It really
Mm.
wasn't a matter of if I was supposed to be doing it, but moving past me, moving
Yeah.
past my
Ooh.
outside situation where I'm like, this kind of looks like my life is falling apart in this season. How I'm supposed to show up for you and my everything else need to come together, but do I even have the energy for this?
Right.
And then accountability, like I had told a couple friends, like, hey, I think God's calling me to start this newsletter and build this community. And I was so mad that I told them that. Like, I was so mad that I told them that because I had put in my head just during a tough season in the fall, like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this right now.
Yeah.
I'm really not doing this right now. And when I went home for Christmas to visit my friends and my family, my sister and her husband asked me about it. Like, so what are you doing with the community God called you to build? One of my best friends, I went to go visit her and her husband while I was home. They was like, so when you start your community? And it was like, we started the newsletter, but like I had started it and kind of took a couple weeks off. And I'm just looking like, I value accountability, and I'm typically the person that holds everybody else accountable.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
it was like, I'm kind of mad I told y'all this, but accountability is important. And especially when people who know you, because one of the things that I talked to my friend and her husband about was they were like, you build community everywhere you go.
Mm.
Why are you not trying to build the community that God's telling you to build? They was like, you naturally do it at work, you naturally do it at church, you do it with your job when you go to college campuses. And you're scared to do it like on purpose. Like you almost do it on accident, but you're scared to do it on purpose
Mm.
for
Mm.
God.
Yeah.
And so really just talking to God, journaling, and that accountability, like there are people around you. You should have people around you rather who won't let you stay on your purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part. And that helped me because it was like after a while, God was like, okay, I got this person asking, I'm giving you confirmation for what to do and how to do it. The rest is on you.
Mm-hmm. And so in that, so one of the things that you said is about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
How did you trying to think of how to ask this? Um like I get it. I understand like people holding you
Yeah.
accountable, you don't really want them to because now you're like, why are you all in my business? Like I
Yeah.
ain't tell you that for you to tell me that. But how did that change your perspective on like once they ask like what'd you do, like how did you then show up to the accountability, because I think that's
Yeah.
the other part, right? Like people can hold, we can ask people to hold us accountable, but there's still
Mm-hmm.
action that has to happen after that. Like even if somebody
That's a
asks
great
you
point.
like, well, what you doing, like you could be like, mind your business, right? Like
Literally.
and then say nothing. So how did you show up after the accountability was, you were challenged with that accountability? What did you do?
That's good. I actually, because I live in Charlotte, my family's up north. When
Hey
I came
Charlotte.
home, hey Charlotte. When I came home after Christmas break, I literally just took a day and was like, I'm gonna write down everything God has shown me about Purpose Pusher Co.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very much a planner. I'm very much a strategic planner. So I'm going to make a plan, but I'm also going to map out the steps.
Yeah.
Like, this is how much I can bite off and chew. And I had told myself, I was like, I'm going to write one newsletter a week. I was going to take all of January to outline what I felt like God was giving me for the Purpose Pusher community.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had a moment in December where God was kind of like, it's time. Like, it's time for you to
Mm.
stop playing. And I'll never forget it. I was on my way to see the Beyonce movie. And in my car, God had told me earlier that morning to write something down. I didn't write it down. I was like, I'll write it down later. And I pulled into my parking spot going to see the Beyonce movie. And God was like, you have to do this today.
Mm.
And I went and saw the Beyonce movie. And I went home and I wrote down everything that he had shown me about the community. And I kind of felt like the Purpose Pusher verse is Esther 4:14 for such a
Mm.
time as this.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like God was showing me like I can use you to do this for such a time as this, or I can use someone else.
Facts.
So this is me saying get to it, or I can pick somebody else.
Yeah.
And I wrote out the map and I just wrote out this is what I'm going to do every week for 4 weeks. And I just picked 3 tasks. Like I'm going to write out this is what the outcomes are for the community. Okay. I'm going to figure out what content I have because I didn't have the funds to get new content at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to have a coaching business a couple years ago, and I was like, we got photo shoots, we have images.
Right.
And so every week God was just showing me like, okay, work the plan, work the plan, work the
Yeah.
plan, work
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah. No, so that was the reason why I asked, because a lot of times when we get to that point of people holding us accountable or we have to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's executing the next steps, right? I
Absolutely.
also wanted to point out the part of that, you know, when you're operating in purpose, like ultimately whatever one God wants to happen, it's going to happen,
It's going
regardless
to
of
happen.
regardless of whether or not he used you or not, right?
Yep.
And I have shared multiple times on here that that was always my fear. That like, what if he gave it to somebody else? What if he gave it to somebody
Yes.
else? And I kept,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I have shared multiple, like you can test God, right? He tell you to test me, right?
Yeah,
In
that's
different
me.
ways.
And he'll show you.
You can question him and you can but at some point in time, you just have to do. And I remember a couple of years ago, after I had been like, okay, God, if this is how y'all do it, and yeah, I'm gonna tell you how I do it so that
I'm
you
already
probably
with
do
you
it
on
the
the
same
if
way.
this
It's like
is.
you be like, okay, Lord, if this what you want me to do, then X, Y, and Z will happen. If this works out, that means blah blah blah. And so my
Yep.
final test was getting slaying self-doubt trademarked. And it was really because somebody had heard the saying at like a conference or something. And they
Okay.
asked, like, are you at this conference? And I was like, no, I'm at home. Why? And so they were like, I heard somebody say something about it may not have been the exact word like slang self-doubt, but
Yeah,
something about it. But I was like, if somebody else can say something and it triggers you to think of me, that means I put enough work in for you to
that's right.
know that. And so then I was like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna go through the process. If this
That's
every time
right.
if this gets approved, then that means this is your stamp. And still,
Come on.
y'all know y'all been with me on this journey long enough. Y'all know I
Listen.
still was like, I mean, I know I got the trademark. However,
Come on.
did that really mean blah blah blah? You know what I'm saying? So I think the other parts of that is yes, he's going to get somebody else to do it, but when he tells you it's you, and then and he go if he goes silent, it's still you, right? Like
It's still you.
it's still you. And so I think what Christian is saying is like write 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 it down, make it plain,
Mhm.
create a plan, and then do
Yep.
the work. Right?
Do
Like
the
you didn't
work.
say I just wrote it down, put it in my journal and walked away. I did the work. Like and you and one day at a time, step by step. Nothing happens overnight. And
Exactly.
in real life.
Yeah.
Let me just
Hello.
say that with my air quotes. In real life, nothing happens
Yes.
overnight. Everything has to be built. Everything has to take its time.
Yes.
And I think that when you are in tune and you know that this is bigger than you and there are people connected to you, if you don't do
Yeah.
the thing that you're supposed to do, that's where the purpose comes from. Like I
That's right.
continue to show up for slaying self-doubt because I know it's not just about me, right? Even in those
Yeah.
hard moments. And you said something earlier that made me think about that. Like in those moments where you're trying to figure out, like, should I still show up? The answer is always going to be yes. Like
Yes.
it's always going to be yes because somebody is connected to Purpose Pusher. If you don't
Yeah.
do it, they're not going to get what they need. So
Yeah.
you have to actually show up. Continue. So that's an encouragement to you, and that's an encouragement to anybody who's
Yeah.
listening. Whatever it is that God has given you, there is somebody else connected to that thing. So if you
Truly.
don't do your thing, they can't do the next thing. It's like like Lego pieces, right? You missing
Yeah.
something, it just stops. Like you
Hmm.
can't build
You holding up
anymore.
people,
You holding up the line. Yeah, holding up
child.
the line. Okay. So what have you learned about yourself that you didn't know before?
Ooh. I think that I am learning that my faith is bigger than I thought it was.
Mm.
I thought that my faith was big, and I've kind of always, even my friends know that I have big faith, but I think I've had big faith for me. But operating in Purpose Pusher Co has had me to have to believe for more things beyond me.
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
believe that when I launched the digital community, women would join. Believe that as they joined, God's going to give me a fresh word for our prayer call every week, for our
Mm.
community calls bi-weekly every 2 weeks, to
Mm-hmm.
believe that I was going to have my first Purpose Pusher in-person event this summer, and God woke me up one day in March and was like April 13th, and I was looking like, I'm sorry, what? How? Where? With whose funds? Because you're going to have to fully fund it.
Right, right,
And
right. That
he
part.
did it. And these are the conversations that
Amen.
I have with God. This is just
Yeah.
my plane. This is how I talk to God. And it's like every time he's had me believe him for the next thing and the next thing on behalf of Purpose Pusher Co., he showed up. But it showed me also, if I can believe and depend on him for this, to provide each word, to provide the
Mm.
finances, to provide the people in the ministry, how much more can I believe him bigger for myself?
Mm. Mm.
And every time there's a thing where it's like, okay, God, I'm gonna do it, but you gotta provide for it. Or I'm gonna do it, but you have to show me. And he does it. It's like, okay. And now I
Yeah.
understand. Say we go from faith to glory to glory, because you might think, okay, I have great faith, but walking in your purpose, it's gonna push you to have greater faith. And then
Yeah.
once you go to that next level of faith, even greater.
Mm-hmm. No, that is so that is I feel that that is so true, and I think that as you continue to move forward, um, you'll see those things, right? And you have
Yeah,
to you the thing about it is like I just said, like if it's not about us, and when we rely in our own strength, that's when things get harder. But having that
yeah,
faith allows you to keep showing up, allows you to keep doing, because you'll be able to see the things, and you'll be
yeah,
that's not to say that like you're not going to be afraid of these things, like fearful,
absolutely.
and I want to say afraid not afraid, but fearful of like
Absolutely.
leveling up, right? I always
Mhm.
say, slaying self doubt shows up at every level, right? Like
Every
even
level.
if you're saying about the, the in person event, like, okay, God, well, I hear you, but how or sway, like,
How?
how you gonna make it happen? But you have to believe that it's going to come together. And but again, let's go back. You gotta do the work. So
Yeah.
something you said earlier that I wanted to circle back. I was going to wait till after this question before I circle back.
Yes.
So you said being a PK
Mm-hmm.
and saying that you were not going to be in ministry because
Mm-hmm.
of how you grew up. How does it feel now to know that your ministry, like your life is your ministry?
It blows my mind, honestly. It also, people say like we make our plans and God laughs
Huh?
because,
Yep.
again, I loved my parents. I love my parents' church. Go back when I visit home, so it really wasn't like the people were so crazy or this or that. But I understood from a young age the weight of the responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
warfare. Like I understood all of that. I was the first. I'm the first of five. I'm 31. My parents' church, I believe, is like 2 years younger than me,
Wow. So
29.
you was there from the
So
inception. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like when people are like, okay, my parents started the church at no, baby.
You was the
The
start.
me and the church is siblings, okay?
Right.
We
Right. Right. Right.
we grew up and figured it out together. My parents was figuring out the pastor and figuring out the children, and we were all
Yes.
growing together.
Yeah.
But it makes me laugh because it's like you can run, but you can't hide when it comes
Mm.
to God. And I think I've always known that I was called to do ministry, maybe in traditional or non-traditional ways, but I just didn't want the weight.
Yeah.
I didn't want the warfare. I think a little bit of me was scared. And then it was just like, now I'm like, okay, yeah, like the weapons have formed, but they haven't prospered. The
Yeah.
attacks have come, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
And the season that I went through the end of last year, it was so hard. I literally almost lost everything. And I told God, like, okay, if we get out of this, I'm gonna give you my yes. And you
Mm-hmm.
make those empty promises. Sometimes he gets you out and then you keep going. But this one was like, no, I really feel like the devil ran up on me. And I wrote this on an Instagram post. I'm going to spend all of 2024 making sure I walk out in my purpose and other women do too. Like,
Yeah.
that's going to be my hit back. That's going to
Yeah.
be my warfare
Yeah.
because a lot of times we play defense, but we won't play offense. Like, oh, the devil attacked me. Well, no, let me get prepared because you're going to come and attack me because I'm
Yeah.
walking in purpose, but I'm not scared no more.
Yeah. And that just when you said that, I'm gonna go back, but when you said that, it made me think of Jonathan McRiddle's song, Cycles, right? Like
Yes.
the same way the Lord knows you, the enemy knows you too, right? And he's using you against you, right? And so
Yeah.
when we change our mindset of how we're looking at things and we are
Yeah.
prepared in a day, like you said, being on offense, like I already know what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to look different in every season, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
thing about it is that specifically, I'm a firm believer that the way that he gets us women is up here.
Yeah. Yeah. In your mind.
It's in your mind. I say there is. I didn't realize this a couple of years ago, but I've said often that the first question in the Bible is him asking Eve, "Did God really say that?" All he
Come
did is
on.
just a seed of doubt. That was it.
Plant that
That's
seed.
the first question in the Bible is like, did he really say that? And that's the
So
thing
good.
that plagues us on a consistent basis. Like, I mean, I thought I heard him, but I ain't really sure. Maybe was he talking to me? Was this a three-way code? Like, was I on somebody accidentally on somebody's party line? Like,
Right.
how did
Was
I?
that for me?
Right, I was listening to some music. That's what you know what I'm saying. Like
Yep.
we
I
are
ate some bad Chinese food
right.
last night.
We got every reason in the book why that was not for us, right? But like
Yeah.
you said, like being on offense um is taking care of us, right? Because if
Yeah.
you know who you are and you know whose you are and you know what it is you've been called to do, it doesn't matter when the enemy shows up and tries to, distract you. Like for me, mine
Yeah.
is procrastination, avoidance, and anxiety. When those
Yeah.
things show up and I'm feeling it because I know what that's gonna make me do, it's gonna make me sit
Exactly.
down. And I'm gonna sit down for
Mm-hmm.
a long time because I just rather instead of dealing with whatever it is, I'd rather just watch
Yeah.
Chicago PD or something like that,
Take a
right?
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd rather just be like avoid the whole thing. But now that I'm aware that that is how you won't catch me again, it may be a day, and I may once I realize
Hello,
and be like, what's hold on, girl, what's
what's
wrong with
going on?
you? Right. Like, oh, okay. So really what that means is that if I do this, you're gonna be mad. Got it. So let me go ahead and do this. And then you just
Hello,
have to get me on the next thing. But if it once he knows he got you, that's he just going it's just he's
exactly.
just gonna run it up, run it up. What's that meme? It's like another one, thank you.
Yep,
Another
another
one.
one.
when
Literally, and
yes,
sometimes
that
that's how it feels.
he already know, like, I ain't gotta do nothing to her. Let me just put this seed of doubt in
That's
her
so
head. Let me just
good.
go ahead and make her question this thing. Let me throw this little argument in here. Let me find a friend that
A
she
seed.
likes to tell you, are you sure that's gonna work? And that'll mess her up. That'll mess
That's
her up,
so
and then
good.
she'll be stuck, right? And so once we know that, like you said, your faith is bigger. You already know that, and you're able to take those things and like just child, please. Boy, not today.
Yeah,
Not today. I heard a sermon, and then I'm going to get into
yeah,
purpose pusher. I'm I'm saying this because I know that the her is big. Like
yeah.
they don't know because they're not
They don't see it
they don't
visually, but I
see it, but I
appreciate you
see it,
seeing the
right? So I'm
vision.
like, I
Thank
got
you.
the it's the her, y'all.
Thank
Purpose
you.
push her. Okay. But I was thinking I heard a sermon the other day. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
It's
See, this is what happens, right? Like I really
yeah,
did. We were talking about the enemy, and I'm not gonna.
yeah.
It's gonna come back later.
You were
So
talking about a sermon you heard the other day.
yeah, I know. I'm not right now. Is that thing has
That's
left
okay. We're
my
gonna call
brain?
it back
Yeah,
if it's supposed to come
it's
back.
gonna come back, and in the middle, I'll be like, oh yeah, now I remember. But okay, so we're gonna talk about purpose push her until
Sure.
the thought comes back. So tell us all about the community, what you get in it, what do you do in that so
Sure.
that those people who want to be connected can get connected.
So God gave me this vision of just creating a women's community. And right now I'm starting to just call it its own entity because there are layers to it. And I
Mm-hmm.
always like people to know that because you may not want to pay to join the community membership, but you may want to benefit in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
So the Purpose Pusher community, the entity as a whole is just created to empower women to walk in purpose, and to do it in community with boldness, strategy, and accountability. And so the first layer is the Monday morning newsletter I send out. It's called the Purpose Push. So I send that out to my newsletter email list every Monday. And it's really just to push women walking in purpose. Like, here's
Mm-hmm.
a word from God. Here's something to encourage you or challenge you or inspire you as you walk into the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second layer is the community. So the digital community is a monthly membership. And within that, I'm actually working with the women to kind of work the vision.
Yeah.
So we do a Wednesday prayer call. And within the app, we use an app called Heartbeat. We do that as in a voice room. And it's really just wonderful because you don't got to get up. You don't got to look like nothing. You can be in your bed or starting your workday. We do a half an hour of prayer. And I share a verse that God has given me. And we connect like that every Wednesday. And then bi-weekly, we do Monday night community calls. So one is called the Pour Call, Pour. And God has shown me to use that to pour into women either about leadership strategies, entrepreneurship strategies, or spiritual strategies.
Mm.
So the women that we're attracting in the digital community, God has shown me that they are leaders. They are women
Yeah.
really serious about their purpose. And I personally feel like there's not enough people preparing people to go out in the world and have the strategies to be successful as a leader, as a woman of purpose. And so
Yeah.
every once a month we do the pour call on one of those types of strategies, and then once a month we do a strategic planning community call. So we discuss our lanes of purpose. So I share with people my lanes of purpose are women's empowerment, education. I work at a HBCU in South Carolina, um, and content creation. So these
Mm.
are three lanes God has given me. And so in the strategic planning call, we plan out either the next month or the next quarter, or we do Q&As and I answer questions on like the how. How do I work towards this
Yeah.
podcast? How do I structure writing this book? How do I fight the spiritual warfare that I'm experiencing?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the components of the call. Just we connect in the app throughout the week. I'm sorry, of the community. We connect in the app throughout the week. We do our bi-weekly Monday night calls, and then every week we do our Wednesday morning prayer calls. And it's been amazing. Honestly,
Yeah.
we started the end of February and I opened up the membership for about 4 or 5 days every month for people to join. That way
Mm-hmm.
we can welcome new people all at one time and they can get into the flow. And I mean, I thought I was going to launch it and I was like, Jesus, there might be zero people. But I think we're at like 15 women now,
Let's
and it's really
go.
just amazing. Women from up and down the East Coast. So I'm praying for our first West Coast member and our first international member. But we're growing, and God is doing amazing things.
I love that. So first of all, I love the intentionality behind it, right? Because it's not
Thank you.
just the newsletter, right? Like that.
No,
That's something you didn't stop there. It is I you know, it being on the journey, I've been a part of a lot of different communities.
yeah,
But this sounds very well thought out, right? Like I want to
thank
give
you.
you some encouragement, but I also want to give you strategic steps to be able to move forward, and I want to
Yeah,
pray with you, and I want you to
absolutely.
do some work too. Like this ain't all on me. You better figure it out for yourself, right?
Hello.
So taking some of the work off of yourself to be able to do those things. And so when you said I can't, you said heartbeat is what it is. It when you said it's audio, so it's like Clubhouse, how Clubhouse used to be. Is
So
Clubhouse still a
actually,
thing?
I don't know if Clubhouse is still a thing, but some of
Mm.
you guys might be familiar with like a Mighty Networks
Oh
or
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah. Or like the
Discord or something like
circle.
that.
Uh-huh.
Circle. So Heartbeat is like an app you can build a community on. And
Okay,
so we
okay.
use that as our purpose pusher community home is through the Heartbeat app. They're able to download the app and then everything that we do, like
It's
events
through
are
that. Oh,
already in the
okay.
app and things like that. And then the final layer is in-person events. So that's where God has been really it challenging me to do in-person events, but it's something I've always wanted to do. But my
Mm,
commitment is doing them once a quarter.
yeah.
So that came with our very first unexpected event in Charlotte. But
It
I
wasn't
like people to
unexpected for you, girl. It wasn't
girl,
unexpected.
it was unexpected for me. You're right. It was not unexpected for God.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, I like that God has given me layers. All right. If you want something free and intentional, you can do the newsletter. The membership, the community membership is $21.99 a month. And then the in-person events, it just listen, I tell people all the time, I'm just going with God.
Yeah.
He woke me up one day and said, do the Charlotte one. I'm excited actually that you said the DMV because the next event is going to be in the DMV.
Hey.
He's been
Well,
working
hold on,
on
time out. What part of the so let me be specific about my DMV. I'm in Prince
yes.
George's County. That's the
Okay, Prince George's
that's the
County.
M part of the
Yes,
that
that's the
part of it.
M.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So,
Because some people hear
I
demon, they're like, yeah, Baltimore. I'm like, show that is like an hour 45 minutes away.
okay,
But we
exactly.
are not the same.
Period. So I'm actually from Chester, Pennsylvania. Grew up for 10
Oh,
years, and
okay,
then my
okay.
family was in Delaware. So I'm familiar with the DMV,
Oh,
honey,
you,
because we used
yeah,
to
you're
be at
not too.
Baltimore Harbor, National Harbor,
Oh,
Washington D.C.,
yes.
all of
So
it.
you know exactly where we are. Yep.
Yes. So I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, I started doing research for venues and things like that. So I'm looking in all the parts, the D, M, and the V,
You
and we're
are.
gonna see where we land.
Yes, yeah. I would listen. I would love to be able to support that when you're here. So
Thank you.
definitely when that time comes, let us know. I will make sure I send that to the listeners in the area so they can come. And regardless, right?
Okay.
Like I always ask how we can connect with you, but oftentimes people. So this is just a side note. Oftentimes
Yeah.
people are when they do the podcast, I've had people be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were going to repost this thing that I did like months later." And I'm like,
Yeah.
once we connected, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
very intentional about the fact that whoever God puts on this podcast, like you gave them this opportunity on this platform for a reason. So the least I can do
Yes.
is share what you're doing and however. And I've seen people get like, oh yeah, saw you share something, and so then I got connected with this person, and I'd be like, hey, at the end of the
Don't
day,
worry.
whoever's supposed to be with whoever, it's not that ain't on me, but I ain't no gatekeeper,
Yeah.
so
God just doing his thing. And
he doing
likewise,
his
that's how I
thing. He
feel.
doing his thing. So I will make sure that we share that when it happens. And even like I say, if you do it in Charlotte, it's only like 6 hours away from here.
Yes,
But it is good. So how can people connect with you? How can they get if they want to be a part of the community, how can they do that?
sure. So if you want to follow me on social, I'm at Christian Mills, two N's, two S's. I was gonna tell people somebody took the first version of Christian Mills, so that's what I got. The second one is at Purpose Pusher HQ, I believe that's the Purpose Pusher specifically. I call that our Instagram headquarters. So
Okay.
Christian Mills is me. Purpose Pusher HQ is Purpose Pusher, all things by itself. And then you can subscribe to the newsletter. If you want to join the community, definitely make sure you're following me or the Purpose Pusher page because I would usually will share like 5 to 7 days before, like, hey, the community's gonna open up next
Okay.
weekend for these days. Usually it's like a Thursday to Sunday or a Friday to a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you want to get the newsletter, you can find that link in both of those bios. So I try to make everything pretty seamless for everybody.
Nice, nice. So y'all already know it's going to be in the show notes, but yes, the second page is Purpose Pusher HQ.
Yes.
That is the Purpose Pusher page. I did not notice that it was two ends in the Instagram page. As soon as you said it, I looked and was like, oh yeah, it is two ends in there.
Yes. Somebody asked me before, like, why'd you do that? I'm like, because Christian Mill somewhere.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's this like gray page with 2 followers that make you
right.
so mad. Somebody has that name.
Like, please. That's why, listen, these are things why you got to secure your stuff immediately, because all it takes is
Hello.
for somebody to do something and you be like, what is going on? You took my stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but we gonna find you. It don't matter. We gonna find you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christian, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your
Absolutely.
journey and just being transparent and open about what it is that what God has put on your heart to do. And again, thank you for your obedience of doing the hard things in the hard times, right? Like that is
Thank you.
it's not ever an easy thing to do, but we do it because there really ain't no other way.
Honestly.
Like real talk, it really ain't no other way. So
Yeah.
y'all, the like I said, all the information will be in the show notes for you all to get connected with Christian and the Purpose Pusher Push Her Co.
You got it.
Yes, Push Her Co. Again, thank you so much, Christian. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I just appreciate you 1,000 times. And thank you for walking in obedience and opening up your platform to me.
Oh, you are so welcome. All right, y'all. Until next week, keep slaying, sis. See ya.
Bye.
All right, y'all. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. Remember to head over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me at Slaying Self Doubt. Oh, wait, don't forget, go to my YouTube channel and watch this episode. And remember to press the subscribe button. Until next week, see ya.